in the 1820s, an Aboriginal group were camped over at Bellerive, and they were not part of the war. The governor of the time was under pressure to teach Aboriginal people a lesson, so he ordered the guards to go over and grab the nearest two Aborigines because a shepherd had been killed up around Scamander, Swansea, and they grabbed a traditional Aboriginal lawman and a younger Aboriginal man, brought him over here to Murray Street in Hobart, put them through a kangaroo court and hung them. People who couldn't speak the English language, had absolutely no idea of what law they'd broken, were completely innocent of killing anyone. They'd been coming in and out of Hobart for 20 years, and then all of a sudden they were hanged. And the purpose of it was for the governor to show the white people of Tasmania in 1826, I know how to teach the blacks a lesson.
And the people in power at the time, they were happy to turn a blind eye to obviously killing two innocent men.
That's right, and not just the people in that time, the people of Tasmania today. The government, the returned soldiers' leagues, the education people, the general public, all know about the fallen warriors at Gallipoli, but no one knows about Aboriginal people who were sacrificed here in Tasmania so that white settlement could take place. And I think there's an obligation on the authorities and the government to start announcing that they want the truth about Tasmanian history to be taught and to be made public.
Someone sees Aboriginal people being treated that way back then, and that attitude is then passed on to the next generation. Is it any wonder that we've still got such a long way to go?
I think that's a very true statement. Because the Hobart Town Gazette at the time was baying for blood, and the government of the day was willing to sacrifice the lives of two Aboriginal men for political purposes, it means that if we don't understand exactly what happened, we run the risk of making similar mistakes in the future. And what we've seen is that Aboriginal people had their land taken away from them by force, and Aboriginal people 200 years later still have to go down on our knees and beg for bits and pieces of our lands to be handed back to us. So I don't think we have learnt the lessons of history. Tasmania wasn't peacefully settled. It was a violent, aggressive taking of land by white people from Aboriginal people, and those lands should be handed back as a gesture of apology for the way it was done.
And events like that must have just cemented a deserving distrust of white people from the Aboriginal community. How could they possibly trust them after seeing something like that?
And that certainly was the case. Right through the 1820s, Aboriginal people feared any white person, and when Robinson rounded people up, it wasn't done on the basis of a peaceful rounding up and come over to Flinders Island with me. It was done on the basis, if you don't come with me, the rest of you are going to be killed the way the two Aboriginal people were hung in Hobart. And they went away to Flinders Island on the promise that they would be allowed to be returned to their land. And what that meant was they weren't going to come back to a block of land, they were going to come back to their traditional lands, which, had the invasion not taken place, would have been in our hands today. We would have inherited all of those lands. Now, if there is to be a settlement, we need that the truth about history has to be part of that settlement. And we urge the government to start beginning talks about finding out how to speak the truth about history and how to make a land settlement with the Aboriginal people.
The Premier's got a bit of political capital to spend at the moment. If he wanted to make a real difference in terms of, Indigenous reconciliation, what should be his priorities?
Well, if he doesn't do something before the COVID period is finished, he's going to be a Premier for health. So now is the time for him to start making progress about coming out of the health crisis and dealing with social and political and justice issues, which includes reconciliation with Aboriginal people. And as Paul Lennon and Ray Groom said in the past, you cannot have reconciliation with Aboriginal people while you still hold the land that was taken off them at the point of the gun.
Premier to, has anything come out of it?
Well, the Premier said that he wanted time to consider the best way of moving reconciliation forward. He said land was on the agenda. He also considered the prospect of a treaty. So we're a willing partner. We're waiting for the Premier to make the next move.
The other day in Parliament he said, oh, we can't do this on electoral reform because we've been too busy. I imagine that sort of excuse wouldn't wash with you in terms of reconciliation.
You can't have a government that only deals with health. The government has done a fantastic job of protecting us all in a health crisis, but that's not the only thing that's happening in Tasmania. We are waiting for justice. We are waiting for representation in the Tasmanian Parliament. There's no reason why the Parliament can't vote on that tomorrow. There's no reason why the Parliament can't vote tomorrow to hand land back to Aboriginal people or start telling the truth about history.
Thank you. That's great.